In the vast expanse of the universe, where stars burned like tiny candles in an endless night, there existed a civilization far older and wiser than anything humanity could imagine. These beings didn't live on planets as humans did. Instead, they traveled between systems aboard massive ships that were more like floating cities. One such traveler was part of the United Systems of Andromeda, a coalition of species that had long since mastered space travel, communication across light years, and even immortality for some. This particular being wasn't extraordinary by any stretch. It worked as an archivist, tasked with maintaining records of star systems, planets, and anomalies scattered throughout the galaxy. Its job was simple but crucial: keep track of what lay out there in the great unknown. This day began just like any other, with the hum of machinery filling the air inside its ship. The task at hand? A routine scan of Sector 9Z, a quiet corner of the galaxy marked as unremarkable decades ago. Sector 9Z was home to a cluster of yellow dwarf stars, ordinary suns, much like Earth's own. But one of these stars caught the archivist's attention because it showed signs of gravitational disturbances. Tiny shifts in the data hinted at something unusual lurking within the dust clouds surrounding the third planet orbiting this star. At first glance, it seemed insignificant, a minor glitch in the system, perhaps caused by cosmic debris or magnetic interference. But curiosity got the better of the archivist. Using advanced sensors capable of peeling back layers of space dust and radiation, it directed the ship's instruments toward the mysterious planet. What came next wasn't just surprising, it was unprecedented. The readings flooded in, overwhelming the ship's processors. Biological signatures pulsed faintly from the surface, indicating life. Not just microbial life, either, but complex organisms thriving in abundance. Even more shocking were the waves of electromagnetic signals pouring out into space radio transmissions, television broadcasts, radar pings, and nuclear fallout traces. Whoever or whatever lived on this world wasn't hiding. In fact, they were screaming their presence into the void without realizing who might be listening. The archivist paused, staring at the glowing screen before them. Life in the galaxy wasn't rare, but intelligent life was another matter entirely. Most civilizations developed slowly, cautiously, learning to coexist before venturing beyond their homeworlds. Yet here was evidence of a species that had leaped ahead technologically while remaining deeply fractured. They possessed weapons capable of destroying entire cities, yet they hadn't figured out how to stop fighting amongst themselves. Their atmosphere bore scars of pollution. Their oceans carried echoes of extinction events, and their history was riddled with wars fought over land, resources, and ideology. As the archivist sifted through the data, fragments of human culture began to emerge. There were snippets of music-haunting melodies played on strings and horns. There were images too, fuzzy black and white photographs showing gatherings of people waving flags, holding hands, or marching in protest. Then came darker glimpses, mushroom clouds blooming over desolate landscapes, tanks rolling through streets, and crowds fleeing in terror. The contrast was jarring. How could a species create works of breathtaking beauty while simultaneously engineering tools of unimaginable destruction? The discovery left the archivist shaken. For millions of years, the galaxy had operated under certain assumptions about intelligence. Civilizations typically evolved along predictable paths. They learned to cooperate, they prioritized survival, and they eventually reached out to others in peace. But this new species defied all logic. 7 billion individuals lived on that small blue-green orb, each carrying the potential for greatness and ruin. It was as if the laws of probability themselves had been bent. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the archivist initiated a priority transmission. Every detail of the findings was compiled into a secure packet and sent hurtling toward the galactic core, the central hub of interstellar governance. Normally, such reports would trigger automated responses, assigning teams to investigate further or updating databases with minimal fuss. But this time felt different. Something told the archivists that this discovery wouldn't be filed away quietly. Little did they know, their actions would ripple outward, shaking the foundations of the entire galaxy. For now, though, the archivist sat alone in the dim glow of their console, staring at the swirling image of the distant planet. Somewhere out there, hidden beneath layers of atmosphere and chaos, lived a species unlike any other. Whether they were a beacon of hope or a harbinger of doom remained to be seen. All the archivist knew for certain was that the galaxy would never be the same again. The signal raced through the vast network of the galaxy, a pulse of information carried by subspace channels that connected civilizations light years apart. It wasn't unusual for messages to travel this way. Trade agreements, diplomatic updates, and scientific discoveries were shared constantly across the stars. But this transmission was different. It didn't carry news of a new trade route or the discovery of a mineral-rich asteroid belt. Instead, it carried something that would stop the entire galaxy in its tracks. When the data packet reached the galactic core, the central hub of interstellar governance, it triggered an immediate response. Protocol Zero, an emergency directive reserved for events deemed potentially catastrophic, was activated for the first time in recorded history. Within moments, the message spread outward like ripples in a pond, reaching every corner of the galaxy. The Krell Empire, known for its militaristic efficiency, halted all fleet movements. The merchant guilds of Orion suspended their bustling trade routes. Even the philosopher kings of the Cygnus Belt paused their endless debates about the nature of existence. For the first time in 10 million years, the constant hum of galactic communication fell silent. What had caused such a reaction? The report contained details of a species unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. Humanity, as they called themselves, was a paradox wrapped in chaos. They had developed tools capable of reshaping their world and destroying it, long before they had learned to live in harmony with one another. Their history was a tangled web of brilliance and brutality, creativity and conflict. They had split the atom, sent machines to explore their solar system, and filled their atmosphere with signals that screamed their presence into the void. Yet, they remained confined to a single planet, seemingly oblivious to the fact that they were not alone in the universe. The implications were staggering. According to the mathematical models used by galactic civilizations to predict the behavior of intelligent species, humanity shouldn't exist. By all logical standards, they should have wiped themselves out long ago. Nuclear weapons, environmental collapse, and endless wars over resources should have erased them from the cosmic ledger. And yet, here they were, a thriving, chaotic mass of contradictions, broadcasting their flaws and triumphs into space for anyone to hear. The silence that followed wasn't born of fear, though fear certainly played a role. It was all mixed with confusion, wonder tinged with dread. Across the galaxy, beings who had lived for centuries or even millennia found themselves grappling with questions they thought they had already answered. What did it mean to be intelligent? What separated survival from self-destruction? And most importantly, what could humanity teach them about themselves? In the great libraries of the Andromeda Cluster, scholars pored over the data, searching for patterns that might explain how humanity had endured. Some argued that their resilience was a fluke, a statistical anomaly that defied explanation. Others suggested that their very chaos might hold the key to their survival. After all, in a universe governed by order and logic, perhaps unpredictability was the ultimate defense against extinction. Debates erupted in virtual forums and council chambers. The Krell Empire, ever cautious, advocated for immediate quarantine. If humanity posed a threat to the stability of the galaxy, they reasoned, It was better to contain them now before they could spread their instability beyond their home planet. The merchant guilds of Orion, on the other hand, saw opportunity. Humanity's technological advancements, combined with their apparent lack of awareness of the wider galaxy, made them ripe for exploitation. Trade deals, resource extraction, and even colonization were discussed in hushed tones, but it was the philosopher kings of the Cygnus Belt who offered the most unsettling perspective. They viewed humanity not as a threat or an opportunity, but as a mirror. In their eyes, humanity reflected the darker aspects of galactic society, the greed, the division, the short-sightedness that had been smoothed over by eons of progress. Perhaps, they argued, humanity's existence was a reminder of what the galaxy had once been and what it could become again if complacency took hold as the discussions dragged on. One thing became clear: no one knew what to do. Humanity's discovery had thrown the galaxy into uncharted territory. Direct intervention seemed too risky. What if contact sparked a chain reaction that led to their destruction? Ignoring them felt equally untenable. Leaving such a volatile species unchecked could have unforeseen consequences, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. And so, the silence continued. Ships stopped moving. Markets froze. Even the great engines of industry slowed to a crawl as the galaxy waited, watched, and wondered. Meanwhile, on Earth, life went on as usual. People woke up, went to work, argued over politics, and dreamed of the future. They had no idea that their noisy little planet had become the center of universal attention. That billions of eyes, some organic, some mechanical, were trained on them, trying to make sense of their existence. Back in the galactic core, the United Systems of Andromeda convened an emergency summit. Representatives from every major civilization gathered in a virtual chamber, their avatars flickering like ghostly projections. The debate was heated, with tempers flaring and alliances shifting. Some called for drastic measures, while others urged patience. In the end, a fragile consensus emerged. Humanity would be observed, but not contacted. A network of invisible drones would be deployed to Earth's orbit, tasked with recording every detail of human activity without interfering. At the same time, a low-frequency signal would be broadcast toward Earth, not in words, but in pure mathematics and music. It was a reflection of humanity's own output, stripped of its noise and chaos, showing them what they sounded like to the outside world. The decision brought a measure of relief, but the tension lingered. The galaxy had always prided itself on its unity, its ability to overcome differences and work together for the greater good. Yet here was a species that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligence, survival, and progress. As the drones launched and the signal began its journey toward Earth, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see how the story of humanity would unfold. For now, the silence remained. But it was no longer empty. It was filled with anticipation, curiosity, and a glimmer of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, humanity wasn't a mistake. Maybe they were something more, a spark of potential that could ignite change, not just on their own planet, but across the stars. Only time would tell. Weeks turned into months, and the galaxy remained silent. The initial shock of humanity's discovery had worn off, but the questions it raised lingered like an unanswered riddle. Across the stars, beings who had lived for centuries or even millennia found themselves unable to look away from Earth. It wasn't just curiosity that kept them watching. It was something deeper, something unsettling. Humanity was a mirror reflecting back parts of themselves they had long buried or forgotten. On Earth, life continued as usual. People went about their days, unaware that they were being observed by countless eyes scattered across the cosmos. Wars still raged in certain corners of the globe, while peace treaties were signed in others. Scientists made breakthroughs in medicine and technology, while politicians argued over resources and borders. Artists painted, musicians composed, and writers penned stories that captured both the beauty and the chaos of human existence. To the people living on the planet, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But beyond the confines of their atmosphere, the galaxy held its breath. The silence wasn't oppressive, it was contemplative. For the first time in recorded history, the galactic civilizations found themselves questioning their own assumptions about intelligence and progress. They had always believed that evolution followed a predictable path. Species would develop tools, learn to cooperate, and eventually reach out to others in peace. Humanity defied this pattern entirely. They had split the atom before uniting their nations. They had sent machines to explore their solar system while poisoning their own oceans. They had created symphonies that could move even the most stoic alien to tears, and then used the same technology to build weapons capable of ending all life on their planet. This contradiction baffled the galaxy's greatest minds. In virtual summits, scholars debated endlessly. Was humanity a cosmic anomaly, a statistical improbability that should never have survived? Or were they a warning sign, a glimpse of what happened when intelligence outpaced wisdom? Some argued that humanity's very unpredictability might be their greatest strength. Their chaos, though destructive, also allowed for rapid adaptation and innovation. Others saw only danger, a volatile species confined to a single planet, armed with tools that could wreak havoc far beyond their own borders. The philosopher kings of the Cygnus belt offered perhaps the most profound insight. They suggested that humanity's existence forced the galaxy to confront uncomfortable truths about itself. Over millions of years, galactic civilizations had smoothed over their rough edges, erasing conflicts and divisions in favor of unity and progress. But beneath the surface, those flaws still existed: greed, ambition, fear, all neatly tucked away behind layers of diplomacy and logic. Humanity, with their unfiltered emotions and raw instincts, reminded the galaxy of what it once was and what it could become again if it grew complacent as the debates raged on. Factions within the United Systems of Andromeda began pushing for action. The Krell Empire, ever cautious, advocated for quarantine. If humanity posed a threat to galactic stability, they reasoned, it was better to isolate them now before they could spread their instability beyond Earth. Trade guilds from Orion countered with arguments for exploitation. Humanity's technological advancements, combined with their apparent ignorance of the wider galaxy, made them vulnerable targets for resource extraction and economic manipulation. But neither approach gained widespread support. Quarantine felt too extreme, given humanity's potential for growth. Exploitation risked triggering unforeseen consequences, especially if humans discovered they were being taken advantage of. Instead, the majority agreed on a middle ground: observation without interference. Thousands of invisible drones were deployed to Earth's orbit, equipped with sensors capable of recording every detail of human activity. These machines hovered silently, capturing everything from global politics to personal conversations, creating a comprehensive archive of humanity's daily life. At the same time, a low-frequency signal was broadcast toward Earth. It wasn't a message in words, which might have been misinterpreted or misunderstood. Instead, it carried pure mathematics and music, a reflection of humanity's own output, cleaned of its noise and chaos. The signal showed them what they sounded like to the outside world, stripped of anger and division, revealing only the harmony hidden beneath the surface. It was a gift, though humanity didn't yet realize it. Back on Earth, strange phenomena began to catch the attention of scientists. Background radiation patterns shifted in ways that defied explanation. Unusual harmonics appeared in global communication networks, subtle enough to go unnoticed by most, but impossible to ignore for those trained to detect anomalies. At first, panic flared briefly. Governments convened emergency meetings, and conspiracy theories spread like wildfire. Were these signs of an impending natural disaster? Evidence of secret experiments gone wrong? Or something more sinister? But as the patterns repeated, a different kind of reaction took hold. Curiosity replaced fear. Scientists around the world collaborated, pooling resources and data to understand the source of these anomalies. Slowly, a picture began to emerge not of danger, but of connection. The mathematical sequences matched patterns found in nature, from the spirals of galaxies to the arrangement of petals on a flower. The musical tones resonated with frequencies known to evoke feelings of calm and unity. It was as if someone or something was trying to communicate, not through language, but through universal principles that transcended cultural barriers. This realization sparked a shift in human culture. Artists drew inspiration from the mysterious harmonics, incorporating them into paintings, songs, and performances. Philosophers pondered the implications of being part of something larger than themselves. Even politicians, typically divided by ideology, found common ground in discussing how humanity might respond to this newfound awareness. Though no one could explain exactly what was happening, there was a growing sense that Earth was no longer alone. The change wasn't immediate or universal. Conflicts still erupted, and environmental degradation continued unchecked in many regions. But subtle shifts began to ripple through society. Nuclear arsenals, once symbols of power, started to shrink as nations realized the futility of maintaining weapons that could destroy the planet. Efforts to heal the biosphere gained momentum, driven by a collective desire to present a better version of humanity to whatever audience might be watching. Tentative steps toward a unified planetary government emerged, fueled by the subconscious understanding that humanity's survival depended on cooperation rather than competition. Across the galaxy, observers noted these changes with a mixture of relief and awe. Humanity hadn't solved all its problems, in fact. They were far from achieving true unity, but they had begun the slow, painful process of growing up. For the first time since their discovery, the galaxy allowed itself to hope. Perhaps humanity wasn't a mistake after all. Maybe they were exactly what the universe needed. A reminder that intelligence wasn't just about logic and order, but also about creativity, resilience, and the capacity to learn from mistakes. The silence persisted, but it had transformed. What had once been shock and confusion was now anticipation. The galaxy waited, not with dread, but with curiosity, eager to see how humanity's story would unfold. And deep down, they wondered if watching humanity struggle and strive might teach them something valuable about themselves. After all, the best stories weren't always about perfection. They were about growth, and humanity's journey was just beginning. Decades passed, and the galaxy's silence stretched on, but it wasn't the same silence as before. The initial shock had faded, replaced by a quiet anticipation. Humanity, unaware of the cosmic audience watching their every move, continued to evolve in ways that surprised even the most skeptical observers. The drones orbiting Earth sent back endless streams of data images, sounds, and patterns that painted a picture of a species struggling, failing, succeeding, and trying again. It was messy, chaotic, and often heartbreaking, but it was also undeniably human on Earth. The strange phenomena detected years earlier became part of daily life. Scientists couldn't explain the mathematical sequences or musical harmonics that occasionally disrupted global communication systems, but they learned to live with them. Some dismissed the anomalies as natural occurrences, while others speculated about extraterrestrial origins. Conspiracy theories flourished, ranging from secret government experiments to alien invasions. But over time, a more profound realization began to take root. Perhaps these signals weren't random. Perhaps they carried meaning. The turning point came when a team of researchers in one of Earth's quieter corners, a small coastal town known for its universities, deciphered part of the signal. Using advanced algorithms and sheer determination, they identified recurring patterns that matched universal constants, the Fibonacci sequence, the golden ratio, and other mathematical principles found throughout nature. These weren't just numbers. They were messages, carefully crafted to resonate with humanity's understanding of the universe. Word spread quickly, sparking a global effort to decode the rest of the signal. Collaborations formed across borders, bringing together physicists, mathematicians, musicians, and philosophers. For the first time in history, humanity united not out of fear, but out of curiosity. The project became known as the Harmony Initiative, a name inspired by the hauntingly beautiful tones embedded in the transmission. As pieces of the puzzle fell into place, a clearer picture emerged. The signal wasn't a warning or a threat. It was a reflection, a mirror held up to humanity, showing them what they looked like to the outside world. At first, the revelation was jarring. The decoded message revealed fragments of Earth's own broadcasts, cleaned of static and distortion. There were echoes of music, laughter, and hope, but also glimpses of war, hatred, and destruction. Humanity saw itself stripped bare, without the filters of pride or denial. It was uncomfortable, even painful, but it was also transformative. For the first time, people truly understood the duality of their existence, capable of both breathtaking beauty and devastating cruelty. The response was mixed. Some reacted with anger, accusing the unknown senders of meddling in human affairs. Others felt shame, confronted with undeniable proof of their flaws. But many responded with awe and gratitude. They realized that whoever or whatever was behind the signal wasn't judging them. Instead, they were offering a chance to see themselves clearly, to recognize their potential for harmony amidst the chaos. Artists were among the first to embrace the message. Musicians composed symphonies inspired by the unearthly harmonics, blending them with traditional melodies to create something entirely new. Painters depicted scenes of unity and connection, drawing inspiration from the mathematical precision of the signal. Writers penned stories exploring themes of self-discovery and growth, imagining what it might mean to be part of a larger universe. The cultural shift was subtle but significant, spreading like ripples across a pond. Governments followed suit, albeit more cautiously. Diplomats convened summits to discuss how humanity might respond to the signal. Military leaders debated whether the transmission posed a threat, while environmentalists argued that it underscored the urgent need for planetary healing. Slowly, a consensus emerged. Humanity would answer not with words, but with actions. They would strive to become the best version of themselves, not because they feared judgment, but because they wanted to honor the gift they had been given. Efforts to reduce nuclear arsenals accelerated, driven by a shared understanding that such weapons serve no purpose in a world striving for peace. Renewable energy projects gained traction, fueled by a renewed commitment to preserving Earth's fragile ecosystems. Even long-standing conflicts showed signs of resolution, as adversaries recognized the futility of fighting over resources when cooperation offered a better path forward. None of these changes happened overnight, but the momentum was undeniable. Meanwhile, the galaxy watched with bated breath. Observers noted each step humanity took toward progress, documenting moments of triumph and failure alike. They saw nations come together to address climate change, only to falter under political pressure. They witnessed grassroots movements rise up to demand justice, only to face resistance from entrenched power structures. And yet, despite setbacks, humanity kept moving forward. Their resilience was remarkable. Their capacity for reinvention unmatched. For the first time, some factions within the United Systems of Andromeda began to question the wisdom of maintaining complete silence. Was it fair to observe humanity without acknowledging their efforts? Could withholding contact hinder their growth rather than encourage it? These questions sparked heated debates, dividing those who believed in non-interference from those advocating for cautious engagement. Ultimately, the decision rested with the Galactic Assembly. After months of deliberation, they reached a compromise. A single gentle transmission would be sent to Earth, not in language, which risked misinterpretation, but in pure mathematics and music. The message would contain no demands, no instructions, only an invitation. You have passed the test of survival. Now, you are invited to learn how to live. Welcome to the galaxy. When the signal reached Earth, it arrived quietly, almost imperceptibly. At first, it went unnoticed, buried beneath the noise of daily life. But eventually, someone detected it, a young astronomer working late at an observatory, running routine scans of deep space. When the data appeared on their screen, they froze, staring at the glowing lines of code that pulsed with an otherworldly rhythm. It was unmistakable. This wasn't random interference. This was communication. News of the discovery spread rapidly, igniting a firestorm of excitement and speculation. Governments scrambled to analyze the signal, while scientists worked around the clock to decode its meaning. Within days, the truth became clear. Humanity had received its first official message from beyond the stars. The content was simple yet profound, an acknowledgement of their struggles, a recognition of their potential, and an open door to join the wider cosmos. Reactions varied widely. Some celebrated, hailing the message as proof that humanity wasn't alone. Others expressed fear, worried about the implications of stepping onto a galactic stage. But for the majority, the overwhelming emotion was awe. After centuries of wondering, dreaming, and searching, humanity finally had confirmation. They were part of something greater than themselves. As the news sank in, a sense of responsibility took hold. People began to think differently about their place in the universe. Leaders spoke of stewardship, not just of Earth, but of the galaxy. Educators emphasized the importance of understanding and respecting other forms of life. Artists created works that imagined what lay beyond the stars, blending science fiction with newfound optimism. Back in the galaxy, the silence broke, not with fanfare or spectacle, but with a collective sigh of relief. Humanity's journey was far from over, but they had taken the first step toward becoming a true interstellar civilization. The observer drones continued their work, documenting every moment of this pivotal chapter in human history. And though the galaxy remained cautious, there was a growing belief that humanity might just have what it takes to contribute something meaningful to the cosmic community. The story of humanity was still being written. But now, for the first time, they knew they weren't writing it alone. The verdict had finally come. After decades of observation, analysis, and quiet contemplation, the galaxy had reached a decision about humanity. It wasn't unanimous, far from it, but it was conclusive enough to move forward. Humanity, flawed and chaotic as they were, had earned their place in the cosmos. They weren't perfect. No species ever was. But they had proven something far more valuable: resilience. Despite every obstacle they faced, wars, environmental collapse, divisions among themselves, they hadn't given up. Instead, they had stumbled, fallen, risen again, and kept trying. That determination, that refusal to surrender even when the odds seemed insurmountable, was what set them apart. The Galactic Assembly convened one last time to finalize their response. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy gathered in a virtual chamber, their avatars flickering like ghostly projections against a backdrop of stars. The debate was passionate, with voices rising and falling in waves of emotion. Some argued that humanity's volatility made them too dangerous to trust fully. Others countered that their very unpredictability might be their greatest strength, a reminder that intelligence wasn't just about logic and order, but also about creativity, adaptability, and the capacity to learn from mistakes. In the end, the majority agreed on a simple truth. Humanity wasn't ready to join the galactic community as equals, not yet. But they deserved a chance to grow, to learn, and to find their footing in the wider universe. The decision was made to extend an invitation, not as a reward for perfection, but as an acknowledgement of potential. Humanity would be welcomed into the fold, not as full members of the United Systems of Andromeda, but as apprentices. They would be guided, mentored, and supported as they navigated the complexities of interstellar diplomacy, trade, and cooperation. With the decision finalized, the transmission was prepared. It wasn't flashy or dramatic, no grand declarations or elaborate ceremonies. Instead, it was a single, gentle message, crafted with care and sent directly to Earth. The signal carried no demands, no conditions, only an open invitation. You have passed the test of survival. Now, you are invited to learn how to live. Welcome to the galaxy. When the message reached Earth, it arrived quietly, almost imperceptibly. At first, it went unnoticed, buried beneath the noise of daily life. But eventually, someone detected it, a young astronomer working late at an observatory, running routine scans of deep space. When the data appeared on their screen, they froze, staring at the glowing lines of code that pulsed with an otherworldly rhythm. It was unmistakable. This wasn't random interference. This was communication. News of the discovery spread rapidly, igniting a firestorm of excitement and speculation. Governments scrambled to analyze the signal, while scientists worked around the clock to decode its meaning. Within days, the truth became clear. Humanity had received its first official message from beyond the stars. The content was simple yet profound, an acknowledgement of their struggles, a recognition of their potential, and an open door to join the wider cosmos. Reactions varied widely. Some celebrated, hailing the message as proof that humanity wasn't alone. Others expressed fear, worried about the implications of stepping onto a galactic stage. But for the majority, the overwhelming emotion was awe. After centuries of wondering, dreaming, and searching, humanity finally had confirmation. They were part of something greater than themselves. As the news sank in, a sense of responsibility took hold. People began to think differently about their place in the universe. Leaders spoke of stewardship, not just of Earth, but of the galaxy. Educators emphasized the importance of understanding and respecting other forms of life. Artists created works that imagined what lay beyond the stars, blending science fiction with newfound optimism. Back in the galaxy, the silence broke not with fanfare or spectacle, but with a collective sigh of relief. Humanity's journey was far from over, but they had taken the first step toward becoming a true interstellar civilization. The observer drones continued their work, documenting every moment of this pivotal chapter in human history. And though the galaxy remained cautious, there was a growing belief that humanity might just have what it takes to contribute something meaningful to the cosmic community. The transition wasn't easy. Humanity faced challenges unlike anything they had encountered before. Learning to navigate the intricacies of galactic politics required patience and humility. Negotiating trade agreements with species whose biology and culture were vastly different tested their ability to adapt. Even simple acts of communication posed difficulties, as language barriers and differing perspectives often led to misunderstandings. But through it all, humanity persevered. Their flaws remained evident. They still argued, still made mistakes, still struggled to see eye to eye. Yet those same flaws became strengths in unexpected ways. Their creativity allowed them to find solutions where others saw only obstacles. Their diversity gave them unique insights into problems that had stumped more homogeneous civilizations. And their capacity for empathy helped bridge gaps between cultures that had been separated by light years. Over time, humanity began to earn the respect of their galactic neighbors. They weren't perfect, but they were genuine. They didn't pretend to have all the answers. Instead, they asked questions, listened, and learned. Slowly but surely, they carved out a niche for themselves in the galaxy, a role shaped not by power or wealth, but by their willingness to embrace change and growth. For the galaxy, humanity's presence brought a renewed sense of purpose. Watching this volatile, unpredictable species rise to meet the challenges of the cosmos reminded them of their own journey. It forced them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves, their complacency, their tendency to smooth over conflicts rather than resolve them, their occasional loss of sight of what truly mattered. In humanity, they found not just a new ally, but a mirror reflecting both their strengths and weaknesses. Decades turned into centuries, and humanity's story continued to unfold. They never lost their chaotic, contradictory nature, but they learned to channel it in ways that benefited not just themselves, but the galaxy as a whole. They became mediators in disputes between warring factions, using their knack for finding common ground to broker peace. They contributed groundbreaking research in fields ranging from medicine to astrophysics, driven by their relentless curiosity. And they shared their art, music, and stories, enriching the cultural tapestry of the galaxy with their unique perspective. Looking back, the galaxy realized that humanity's discovery had been a turning point, not just for Earth, but for everyone. It had forced them to reevaluate what it meant to be intelligent, to survive, and to thrive. It had reminded them that progress wasn't always linear. That growth often came through struggle, and that unity didn't mean uniformity. And so, as humanity stood on the threshold of a new era, the galaxy exhaled, ready to begin a new chapter written together. The story of Earth's first contact with the stars was far from over. But one thing was certain: it was a story worth telling.